what I want to talk to you about today is something that's related to exercise, but that is not exercise. So I want to ask you guys a question. I want you to think about something. If your doctor could give you a drug that helped you live better with cancer, possibly help you live longer with cancer, reduce your blood pressure, strengthens your bones and muscles, had zero side effects. The only side effects would be helping lower your anxiety and making you feel better all the time. If you could have that drug, what would it be worth to you? Peter Attia said that it would be worth $1 million a year if they could bottle that. That's what he thinks it's worth. But to you, it can be free or very little cost, and that's exercise, all kinds of exercise. But the fact is that people with cancer, even people that don't have cancer, they have a hard time accessing that because they don't have the stability and mobility that they need to exercise properly. So what does stability and mobility mean? What I want you to do is I want you to picture your body as a chain link. You know how chain links are like this, right? We have a stable part, that's the chain, and the link is the mobile part. So when you have a chain link, think about that, how it works. You have the strong part that keeps it strong from breaking. You have the mobile part that lets the chain move, correct? Without those two things, let's say that you get the part that's supposed to move and it rusts together. It doesn't work right. Then it starts putting stress on the stable part. What happens to the stable part? It starts weakening because it cannot move correctly. And that's exactly how your body is. And so we don't call that, of course, we don't call your body a chain link. We call it a kinetic chain. That's what that is. And if that's broken in any way, you will not exercise correctly. And instead of helping you, exercise might hurt you. And if you have cancer, most people, okay, whether you have cancer or not, almost everybody has a link that's broken. So we're going to go ahead and start with the feet. We're going to start at the very base of the body, and we're going to go up the body, and I'm going to tell you what is a stable part, the part that's strong, and what's supposed to be a mobile part. And what I want you to do is I want you to think, when I'm talking about these parts, I want you to think about yourself. I want you to think, is that stable, or am I being mobile, or what's going on with that? Because at the end, we're going to talk about what you can do. So let's start with your feet. I remember when I was learning this, I thought, well, the feet must be mobile, right? Because you walk with your feet, so that must be mobility. And I was wrong. Your feet are stability. Your feet are the foundation of your body. They should be strong, and they should not be moving in all kinds of different ways. And I found that out quickly because I've broken 2 toes. And when you break 2 toes, you find out that you're not stable, nor are you mobile. So your feet should be strong. They should be the base. The mobility comes in when you move up the body to the ankle. Think about your ankle joint. Your ankle should be moving in all different directions. You should be able to hold your leg out and move your ankle around, flex, point. If you can't do that, then you are having a missing piece of the link that's broken. Your foot and your ankle are not working together. So you think, well, what's the big deal? This is an ankle, this is a foot. Let's think about this. If your ankle can't move correctly, especially, and this happens if your calves are very tight. If you have very tight calves, you can't squat down. Your heels will come off the ground. You will come up on your toes and you will fall over if that ankle is not mobile. That means you cannot pick stuff off the floor. You're not even going to be able to walk correctly. Now let's move up to your knee. Now, this is another one where I thought, well, your knee would be a mobility joint, right? Because it's moving to get you walking. No, when you think about it, think about your knee. You can move your knee backwards. and extend it in a seated position. But your knee is not actually rotating, is it? If it is rotating, you have a problem. You need to get to the doctor right away. Your knee should be extremely stable. It should only move in one direction, and that's backwards when you're walking. But a lot of people, and I know I'm one of them, I have a left knee, my ligaments are a little weak. I find that it hurts when I go up and down the stairs. It's limiting my mobility because it's not stable. It's not stable enough. And usually this happens when you have the front of your leg, the muscles that run up and down the front of your legs. Usually that happens when they're weak. Maybe you have a difficult time getting up out of the chair. That will mean that you have the front of your legs weak, and that will oftentimes make your knees more mobile than stable. Okay, so let's move up to your hip joints. My sister, as you know, she has lung cancer, and she has a metastasis to her hip. And she was in terrible pain right before she got diagnosed with terrible pain. Your hip joint is supposed to be mobile. Think about your hip joint. It moves in every direction. It can move out from your body. It can move in. It can move around. It can move forward. It can move back. It's so critical to moving around that those hip joints are loose. And my sister was unable to really move her hip joints in all those directions, therefore affecting her knee, therefore affecting the way she walks. So if you are unable, if you have pain and you cannot move that hip joint in every single direction, then it all moves down. Okay, all moves down. So this is something that if you haven't tested it, you should get behind a chair and see, can I move my hip in every single direction? And if not, what can I do to improve that? So let's move up a little higher to your lumbar spine, which is your lower back. And I'm just going to guess that probably 80% of you have lower back pain. I do. Most people do. If you're over 50, you know what that does to you, whether you have cancer or not. You know that your lower back almost always hurts. And that is because your lumbar spine, your lower back, is supposed to be stable. It's part of your core. It's what keeps you upright. We don't have any bones in our midsection to keep us stable. It's muscles wrapped around the lower spine that keeps you upright and stable. But what happens? We sit too much. Our muscles become weak. Our back becomes overstretched, actually. Your lower lumbar spine becomes overstretched and unstable. And guess what? If this happens, the whole lower body will try and compensate for that. Every single joint that's below the lower spine will try and compensate for that, making it weaker and more unstable. So this is an important one. That's why when you hear fitness professionals or your physical therapist trying to strengthen your core, the front, what we think of as your abs, your stomach, that's so it can protect and stabilize that lower spine, your lumbar spine. So in comparison to that, let's move up to the thoracic region. Now, I know that lung cancer survivors often will have metastasis to their spine, often their upper spine. So if this is you, if you have any issues going on with your spine, before you exercise or try and move this upper part, because this should be mobile, your upper back should be mobile. But if you have had fusions, if you have metastasis in your spine, this is going to be a problem for you. And so you're going to have to tread very carefully and probably work with a physical therapist or a personal trainer that understands what's going on back there. But the upper part of your spine should be mobile. It should allow you to twist around. It should allow you to move forward to the sides, right? It should allow you to bend to the side, to this side, backwards, forwards, and rotate around the spine. So if you have a problem doing that, if you have a problem just sitting and rotating from one side to the other, or looking back, or bending forward, then you know that you probably do not have an upper spine that's mobile enough. Now, let's move on to your scapula. Your scapula are bones in the back here, and they are stable. These are stabilizers for your upper body back here. I bet you all have seen people, especially people that are very thin, that are very lean. Sometimes you'll see someone that have a tank top on, and you notice that they have almost wings in the back, okay? Like instead of their scapula laying flat, they kind of come up and they curve out. And you think, oh, that's just because they're so very thin. I can see all their bones. That is true. You can see their bones, but actually what's happened is they have an extremely weak back. And so it can't keep that scapula down, and they end up coming out like wings. So if you ever see someone like that, or if you have that, or if they can see that, that just means that that is not stable. It's mobile when it should be stable. They should be flat on your back and holding you tight and holding you up, putting your shoulders back. You will not have a very strong back if your scapula are winged out. They call that winged out. So there's ways to fix that, but it's important that you know. If you don't know, in fact, if you suspect that, if you have a weak back, you might want to have someone look and say, "Does are my scapula stable?" Or even feel. If you're not an extremely thin person, have someone feel. And if your scapula aren't stable, you need to do exercises to move them back in. And the last joint we're going to talk about is one that I struggle with so much, and I know so many people do, especially when you get over 50, is your shoulder joints. And as you can imagine, your shoulder joints are mobile. They move in every direction, frontwards, backwards. They move out, they move in. Well, they're supposed to, right? I have a shoulder injury that I've had for about, almost 20 years now. And this kind of prevents me from coming up. It's hurtful for me to do that. Now, that's not uncommon. That's a very common injury to have. And it's not the end of the world. But what happens if your shoulders get frozen and you can't reach up, or you can't reach back, right? Suddenly exercise becomes really important, because strong shoulders, strong arms are extremely important for just living life, like picking stuff up, even staying stable, right? If your shoulders are frozen, if you go to fall, if you're going to fall or you need to be quick, what happens? You're going to end up injured because your shoulders cannot move in every direction to protect you. Okay, so this is the kinetic chain. And so I'm assuming that there might be, I don't know, maybe there's a couple of you that are like, oh, I'm amazing, everything works on me. That's it. You can just and go on home, right? But if you're like the rest of us, you're like, I am an absolute train wreck. Almost nothing on my body is working, right? So, and I'm a personal trainer. As far as I know, I don't have cancer. You never know. I'm fairly healthy. And yet I have a knee problem. I have a shoulder problem. My lower back hurts most of the time. So what hope is there for anyone else? I get this a lot. So most of you, if you're like, oh, I am just a train wreck, what the heck, I give up. No, not at all. A lot of this is just normal aging. It's normal for people that have health problems, but there's things that you can do to correct that. Because I'm telling you now that if you can exercise, and if you can exercise correctly, every single facet will get better for you. Whether you have compromised lungs, whether your back cannot move in every direction, it doesn't matter, because every single facet will get better. It's so important that people with cancer, especially people with advanced cancers, don't make things worse by having a fall, by not having lung capacity that is as optimal as they can get it. You may not be able to run a marathon. That's okay. I can't run a marathon. But you want to be able to climb a flight of stairs if you can't. You want to be able to keep up with your kids or your grandkids, or at least take them to the park. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about becoming a power lifter, running a marathon. We're talking about doing everyday things, because living longer is amazing, but living better is even more important. So what are we going to do? If your feet hurt, your knees are a mess, they're all over the place, you can't move, you can't move. What are you going to do? The first thing that I would do is, once we get off, in the next day or two, I would give myself a little physical. I would check my knees. Go ahead and sit down, extend them, lower them, move your joints around. What I've talked about, is this moving or is this not moving? And I would honestly go to your GP or whatever doctor, your pulmonologist, whomever you're seeing, and ask them for a referral to physical therapy if there's something that really you don't feel like you can fix on your own, especially frozen shoulders, hips that aren't moving in any direction, because that is a great way to get started understanding what you understand now, that it's not a big deal that your hip doesn't move in every direction. It's a big deal, because eventually it's going to impact every single step that you take. So that's the first step. If it's not that bad, if you're just like, I just feel a little creaky, I would get with a personal trainer who works with cancer patients, older people, special populations. Don't go to a personal trainer who's training bodybuilders, 23-year-old kid that, is training bodybuilders stuff. Get with someone who really understands special populations, especially people that are over 50 with health issues, and have them help you. Because if we can't fix a joint, you may have things that are not fixable. If you have METs to your spine, you can't fix that. The doctor's doing what they can to keep it stable, or maybe you've had surgeries, but you can't fix that. But guess what a good personal trainer can do? They can modify the exercises for you to make it safe and effective. There's a million different ways to strengthen your back. There's 1,000 exercises. I could give you, I promise you, at least 20 exercises for each part of your body that will work for you, even if it's not something that you can't do. You don't have to do a barbell pull. You don't have to do this. Maybe you can do something else. So that would be my suggestion, because if you're discouraged, if you think, I can't do this. Yes, you can. And I promise you that your doctor wants you to do this. I promise that they do. In fact, most major cancer centers have yoga and different exercise programs specifically for cancer patients, because they know how critically important it is. I was listening to a doctor who said, I don't care if my cancer patient is in a wheelchair, I force them to exercise, just so that they can have a quality of life. It's better, because once you stop, that's it. Your muscles will atrophy. Your stability is going to go straight down the tubes if you don't keep these muscles strong. This is just for everybody. Okay, this isn't just for people that have cancer. This is for everyone, especially as we get older. It's gone. So for people with cancer, it's so important to do this. I just cannot stress that enough. When you have time, I want you to go from your feet to your ankles, to your knees, to your hips, to your lower back, to your upper back, to your scapula, to your shoulders. And I want you to see where your problems are. I would say yoga is one of the best ways to start working on your stability, on the joints that need it, and your mobility. You can trust a very good yoga practitioner to know what joints she needs to strengthen, what joints need to be mobile. And I want to let everyone know that I don't train people in person anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. So actually what Sherry and I are doing, we're going to be starting, and we've just barely started working on a YouTube channel where we're going to talk more about these things, especially for people with cancer. So that's all I have for now. I could talk for hours on this because this is like my wheelhouse. Is the older I get, the more important it becomes for me. Instead of trying to look good, I'm just trying to survive, right? I'm trying to just survive every day so I can keep up. So I guess I will open this for questions if anybody has anything.
Um, Neuropathy in the bottom of your feet. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have neuropathy, and I mean, I can't feel my toes, and there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do to make that any better. So, is there stuff that we can do to help stay? I mean, like you said, you need to be able to walk right so you don't fall. So, is there any exercise or something that we could do to help that?
Yes. So your feet, I don't have neuropathy, but I've had plantar fasciitis, which is like having nails driven up into the bottoms of your feet. And so, yes, it's true. There's nothing, sometimes there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. If you have neuropathy in your feet, you're not going to feel very stable because if you can't feel your feet, then how do you feel stable? So, one of the best things that you can do if you have feet that you feel are not stable for whatever reason, whether you have neuropathy, plantar fasciitis, if you have broken toes or whatever, you need to find exercises that allow you to feel stable. Even if you're not stable, you need to feel stable. A couple of things you can do. You can get on a stair stepping machine. Okay. They have handles on each side, and you can literally go as slow or as fast as you want. And a stair stepping machine, it's very stable. You'll feel very strong doing that. You can, I would suggest not running on a treadmill, nothing. If you do use a treadmill, you would hold on, but that's going to negate a lot of what a treadmill is for. I would prefer using sticks, the walking sticks outside. That helps you practice a little more navigating the world than just being on an artificial treadmill. A stair stepper is very good. A bike. When I had plantar fasciitis and I could barely move, I used a bike. So I got on every day and used a bike to help strengthen my lower body, press my feet against the pedals. You can go as light or strong. If you go very strong on a bike, okay, you just put it to the end. You will work your feet very hard pressing against the pedals. Okay, they have the recumbent bikes. So you can work very hard strengthening those feet.
Maria's got a question on how can we increase our lung capacity?
What you have to do is you have a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, this is what physical therapists or personal trainers will ask you to do. 1 means extremely light. So just sitting here talking or maybe standing, that is an exertion of 1. Okay. 10 is breathless, out of breath. You cannot talk. You could not answer if someone answered. You're going full speed. That's 10 exertion. Where you want to be is in the middle. You want to be, let's say, a 4 or a 5 when you're exercising. Now, that's going to be different from me to you, to Sherry, to anyone else. Everybody's is different. That's why we don't just say, okay, everyone, whether you're a sprinter or the person in the worst case in the world, that you're not going to be the same. So what I would suggest to you is making up your own table of 1 to 10. Think about what a 1 is for you. For some people, that could be just standing still. For some people, that might be a light walk. If you're an Olympic athlete, a 1 might be a jog on the outside, right? To what a 10 would be if you can't even speak. And what I want you to do is to practice walking or doing some kind of aerobic exercise, working up to that 4 or 5, which means you can talk, but you might not want to. And what you'll notice is that over time, that becomes your 4 to 5 becomes stuff that you're doing that's harder and harder. For instance, maybe you're starting on, maybe you get on a treadmill and you're like, okay, I'm feeling a 4 or a 5. I could talk to my partner over here, but I really don't want to. And I'm walking at a 2 miles an hour. That's what I'm doing. And about 4 weeks later, you notice, I can put that up to 2.5 miles an hour. and I feel the same. And then 4 weeks later, I can now go to 3 miles per hour. Pretty soon I'm at 4 miles an hour. And as you progress, you just want to keep it at a 4 or 5. And that's how you will increase your lung capacity. If you have lung cancer, you're going to have damage. Parts of your lungs are going to be damaged and they're not going to work. And some people with lung cancer also have comorbidities of emphysema, or they might have COPD or other asthma that are also compromising their lungs. So you are not going to be an Olympic sprinter, but for yourself, you can make the still healthy parts of your lungs, they will be overjoyed to work faster, harder, and stronger. And they will. I promise you, it's really not that hard.
I'm calling for my son. He has lung cancer. Due to the radiation and chemo, it's damaged his heart, so he always has a rapid heartbeat. That affects him very much so in walking around because his heartbeat gets so fast, then he gets dizzy and lightheaded. So what can he do to build that up to, a number 1?
Okay, so he would do the same thing. He would still think about, so for him, that's going to be totally different than it is for another person. So he has to do the same thing. He has to decide what's a 1 and what's a 10 for him. Now, a 10 for him might be simply going on a walk, and that's okay. But what I would do this is what I would do if I were in his situation, is I would probably start on a stationary bike, something that's very stable, that he's really sure that if his heart rate got up, that he could quickly stop. He's not out for a 5-mile walk where he has to come back for 5 miles. Now, his heart, I would talk to his doctor, or pulmonologist, or cardiologist, and ask what they think his maximum heart rate should be. And that's really important. I'm not sure if they can put him on beta blockers that will slow his heart down. I have no idea, but there are medications that can slow your heart rate down. The important thing for him is, while he's building that up, that he is not going to hurt himself. So I would suggest a recumbent bike, and I would suggest that he goes in spurts. So it's a fact that exercise, even done for 20 to 40 seconds at a high, let's say he goes a little intense for 20 to 40 seconds, and then he can dial it back. That's just as good, actually, as walking for 40 minutes. If you do a cycle like that, where he cycles 40 seconds and he's feeling, okay, I'm getting breathless, and then he slows down or stops. If he does cycles like that, lets his heart rate come down, does it again, that's just as good as taking an hour-long walk. It's a proven fact. It's one way to do a little cheat code if you don't have a lot of time. So that's what I would suggest for him.
But his heart rate never goes down. It's always 140. That's why he's losing a lot of weight. And they tried the beta blockers and all that, and it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So what happens when he exercises? Does it go above 140? I mean, what does he get?
Oh, yeah, it goes above, and then he really gets lightheaded. And I mean, just walking down the hallway, he'll have to stop, It's just very difficult. And then he comes home and he sleeps the rest of the day because he's so tired and fatigued.
How old is he, can I ask?
51.
Oh, he's 51. Okay. So that's, as we get older, your heart rate gets higher anyway. So that's a problem, because your heart rate gets, the older you are, the more it gets. But his is, for a man of his age, a healthy heart rate is probably 75, something like that. So he's probably almost double of what a person with a healthy heart rate. So if he gets lightheaded, even doing 20 to 40 seconds worth of cardiovascular work, has he thought about doing, instead of aerobic exercise, has he thought about doing anaerobic exercise, which is doing a little weightlifting that does not generally increase your heart rate?
No,
Okay. So in lieu of that, and you can increase your lung capacity with doing what's called anaerobic exercise. That means without oxygen. That means you're not raising your heart rate, but you're conditioning your heart, you're conditioning your lungs. And that's as simple as stuff like bench pressing, bicep curling, a little bit of ab work, getting on a leg press. He can do those slowly you do them controlled, your muscles get stronger, your bones get stronger, and even though you're not getting your heart rate up. So I would suggest that he get a personal trainer, again, like I said, that understands that he cannot do aerobic exercise, and get him on an anaerobic exercise program, especially to strengthen up all those chains that we talked about, since his heart's not, his heart rate's too high.
I do have a question. At the rehab center, I use a stair stepper twice a week at a level 5. I know that doesn't mean anything. For 15 minutes. Should I be doing that 3 times a week or a longer cycle?
Yes, you should. Yes, absolutely, you should. I would say 3 times a week is much better than twice, although that's really good. That's really impressive, to be honest with you. That's amazing. So if you can go 3 times a week, that's where I would start. I would not go longer until you add a 3rd time. Once you're going 3 times a week and you're doing it for 15 minutes at a time, once you, like I said, once you get past that, like, I'm feeling a 4 or 5, but it's not that hard. You want to bump that up. You want to keep bumping it. So the important thing is not to go crazy. Don't go, well, I'm doing 15 minutes, so now I'm going to do 2 hours. Yeah. I want you to do 3 times a week. Then once that feels easy for you, I want you to go to 20 minutes a time, and then 25 minutes a time. Probably not more than 30 minutes. You really don't need more than 30 minutes. Once you go past 30 minutes, you're better off getting off and doing some stretching or something else. But that's an amazing way to build up your legs, an amazing way to get your feet strong, work your ankles, work your knees, work your hips, right? Like the stair stepper is amazing. So good job, Jim.
I've got stage 4 cancer, and I've lost my balance, my speech, and losing feeling in both of my hands. So I'm starting to intensify what I'm doing at my rehab center.
No, that's really good. I'm impressed. That's amazing. I'm so glad you're doing that. That's good.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It just makes me want to move. Is it true that when there is areas in your lungs that have been deteriorated from the tumor or cancer, that they can grow back? And is that what's giving me more lung capacity? Or is it just using my breath more and making the lungs larger?
Once the lung is damaged, once the part of it is damaged, it does not really, as far as my understanding, you'd have to ask your pulmonologist about this, but my understanding is that the damaged part of the lung does not really come back. That's not how this is working. So what happens is, and this is in everybody, okay, this is whether you have lung cancer or don't have lung cancer. What happens is that you have the tiny little cells in your lungs. And as you get more and more fit, they take in more and more oxygen. They get healthier. Your lungs don't get bigger. The damaged parts don't come back. I'm not saying they can't, but that's not primarily how this works. It's the healthy cells, and they will take in more oxygen. Your body, your muscles. So what happens is you're running along, you're walking, you're exercising, and your muscles are saying to your lungs, I need more oxygen. That's aerobic exercise. That's considered aerobic with oxygen. Your muscles cannot contract. You cannot keep walking without them having air. That's how that works. And they tell your lungs, please give me more air. And in response to that, your lungs will get, the healthy cells will get stronger, and they will take in more oxygen. And they will also get it to your muscles faster. That's why it helps with your heart, because now your heart says, I have to get this air to these muscles. And so your heart gets stronger, your heart gets better, your lungs get stronger, your lungs get better. And if you have lung cancer, COPD, emphysema, the important thing is not to try and bring back the damaged parts. The important thing is to keep the healthy cells as healthy, as strong and powerful as they can, so that they will take over. Your body's amazing. It wants to move. It wants to be healthy. And so it will take over. It will make up for those damaged parts. That's why it's so critical. I hope that helps. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
I've talked to my pulmonologist and the cardiologist, and I have one lung and asthma. So I clean my house, I walk. I don't have much problems with my joints, just where they removed my lung. I do have a problem turning that way. Anywhere I go, since I have 100% oxygen saturation and I'm very mobile, I haven't heard anything from anywhere besides what I already do to strengthen anything. I can't lift certain things. I have severe osteoporosis. I also have neuropathy in my feet. I can walk a half mile, but then when I get there, I got to sit.
Right.
So as everybody who's used to seeing me, I now have a scooter. So if I'm going to go further than a half a mile, I can have a quality of life. Is there anything that I'm missing? When I can't go out, I go on a treadmill. I make sure that I walk my half a mile about 4 times a week. But as I said, I do clean house. I do the laundry. I do some gardening. I used to teach wheelchair exercise. So is there something though I'm missing?
Yeah, if you have osteoporosis, you need to be very careful with what you do, because it's, as you know, it's extremely easy to break bones. That's I had a client once that had osteoporosis, and I simply was stretching with her, and she broke a rib. So it's extremely
that's what
easy
I was told.
Yeah, it's extremely easy to do. But one thing that you can do to improve osteoporosis is to strength train. No, we're talking about with your lung cancer about keeping your heart and your lungs healthy as you can with aerobic exercise. But now we're going to go back to anaerobic exercise. Again, that's without oxygen, and that is strength training. So that would be, again, something like a leg press. That would be something like bicep curls. Slow, controlled, without heavy breathing, without getting your heart rate up. These are things that, like I said, the one oncologist said he doesn't care if his person's in a wheelchair, he's making them do bicep curls to keep their arms strong. With osteoporosis, with metastasis to your bones, so critical that you keep the ligaments, the tendons, and the muscles around those bones strong so that they don't break. So if I were you, I would definitely add some strength training, but I would do it only with a physical therapist or a personal trainer who knew exactly what they need to do with someone with osteoporosis, because you can really hurt yourself.
Yeah, when I had asked that, they said I had full capacity. There wasn't anything. I was an athlete before all this happened 7 years ago. So I was nothing but muscle, and it's just a shocker. And we have some of the stuff in the house, and but I think I have to contact a personal trainer.
Any of you that were athletic before your diagnosis, athletes have a high rate of osteoporosis, and you would think, wow, why would that be? They're constantly moving, but they do because their bones, especially women, right? Because women that have weighed under 120 pounds most of their life, athletic, that's you. You're a small woman, white, Asian. Yeah. They tend to end up with osteoporosis. So I cannot imagine. You have such an advantage over others because you were athletic. It will come back. You have muscle memory, and you will do very well. You'll do better than the average. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I was athletic when I was younger. My biggest problem is that during my treatments and subsequent to everything, I've fallen enough that I've damaged both rotator cuffs. Being 74, my knees are finally getting shot. And so I intend to join the Y because, I can join free. I belonged to it until COVID. And my oncologist said, no, you're not going to a gym. So I'm not sure what to look for in training at the Y.
I actually spent most of my career at the YMCAs, at different YMCAs around, a good majority of them. So the YMCA, as you know, is a nonprofit organization. And so any of you that are listening, it doesn't matter what your income level is, they will take you. So do not let the cost, this could be absolutely free to you. So any of you that think you can't afford a gym, go to the YMCA, you will have a free gym. Most of them, if you live in a major city, most of them are really good gyms. Are you in a rural area? And if you're in a rural area, some of the Ys in the rural areas aren't quite as sophisticated as the ones in the major cities. But the one that I worked at here in Virginia, they had a program specifically for people that were just getting into it. And I was actually the lead trainer for that. And I would take people sometimes it was in a group. So I would have 1 to 3 people. So that made it kind of fun. We would get people that were, let's say, the same age, same abilities, same issues. And I would take them around and show them different things they could do, different exercises. And it was completely free, 100% free. So cost should never come into this. The Y also has some excellent classes. Now, the people leading the classes are going to vary in abilities. Really want to make sure you get with someone who knows what they're doing, because you can get hurt quite badly. So they have yoga classes, they have step classes, they have all kinds of different classes you can take. But if it were me, that's the first thing I would do, would be head to the YMCA and see what kind of, some of them offer silver sneakers, which I believe that's free if you have Medicare.
Yeah, that's how I joined and will join again with Silver Sneakers.
Silver Sneakers is a great program, because the people who teach senior sneakers, they know that almost every single person is going to have health problems. So they can modify your exercises for you. So if you're of age, I don't know if that's 60 or 65, I'm not sure how old you have to be, but senior sneakers at your local Y or local rec center is that is an amazing thing to get involved with. Any other questions?
I just have one more. I was so blessed to be able to start Tai Chi a year and a half ago. And then the instructor was gone during the summer months. So I practiced on my own, and then I got diagnosed and I just stopped everything. And then I was so blessed a couple weeks ago to get back into it. And I found myself, as I'm moving through forms, I'm breathing out loud. And the instructor was like, "You're supposed to breathe naturally." Well, it feels good to use my breath, because I can breathe, and it's like letting it out. And so Tai Chi has been wonderful for my balance, my stretching, and my brain. Thank you.
What a great comment. That is such a wonderful thing, because any kind of those mind-body exercises, not only are they going to, like you said, help with your mobility, your flexibility, but it's the mind too, right? Like when I spend a large part of the winters in Florida with my sister Sherry, and we used to go to a yoga studio. That was before COVID. But it's just such a wonderful way to get outside of everything goes away, right? Because you're just practicing on using your mind and your body. So for all of those that are listening, like Renee said, really a big part of fitness, even though we're not talking about, that's a whole nother subject that we could talk another hour about. So I'm not going to go into that today, but the mind and body connection that you get with Tai Chi, yoga, any of these arts Pilates, these are just such an amazing tool for people with cancer. So yeah, get involved in that if you can. I agree completely.
Thank you so much. Great presentation.
Thank you, Lori. That was
Thank you, Lori.
really good.